Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. When asked about what he thought of the Death Star, Thrawn told the Emperor, "I would warn against diverting too many of the Empire's resources from a flexible navy of capital ships and starfighters to massive projects that can only bring the Imperial presence to only one system at a time." And of course, he was right. The Death Star was an utter failure. Almost everyone involved in it died.
Sie at the party, Richter!
And then the Tarkin Doctrine didn't really work. When the Death Star fired upon Jeddah and Alderaan, instead of scaring people into submission, it drove more people to the rebellion's cause. And the Death Star also served as a symbolic target that finally united all the rebel cells together into a truly unified force. At the same time, more than 1 million of the Empire's most talented men and women were lost when it was destroyed, along with an incredible amount of resources that were used to build it. A finance professor even did a study where he determined that the destruction of the Death Star would plunge the galaxy into a huge recession, and overnight the galactic economy would shrink in size by 30%. That's nuts! In comparison, at the height of the Great Recession in 2009, the US economy only shrunk by 2.8%. Just imagine how many people would lose their jobs, how many people would die from poverty and starvation, and how many stormtrooper babies would be without a father or a mother. This kind of makes this whole celebration seem kind of messed up. Yeah, I'm just thinking about all those stormtrooper baby orphans. So my question today is, what could the Empire have bought instead of wasting all that money on the Death Star? Well, to answer that question, we have to figure out how much the Death Star actually costs. Now, there have been several attempts by mathematicians and scientists here on Earth to figure out what that number is. Estimates range from $8.1 quadrillion, that's 15 zeros by the way, to as high as $15.6 septillion, that's 24 zeros. Even the White House had their own estimate after being petitioned to build the Death Star. They said no, of course, and priced the Death Star's construction at around $850 quadrillion. But the problem with all these estimates is that they're looking at it through Earth's point of view, and our capabilities are kind of limited when compared to the Galactic Empire. Look at the way we built the ISS. We had to ship it up into space a few small pieces at a time, using extremely expensive rocket boosters. The Empire built their vessels in shipyards in orbit. Now, according to the canon book Star Wars, Absolutely Everything You Need to Know, the Death Star cost over 1 trillion credits. Now, this book does occasionally mention Legends material, but it is considered canon, and it also has a lot of cool information in it, so if you guys want to check that out, I'll link it in the description below. So instead of the Death Star, the Empire could have purchased 6,666 Imperial-class Star Destroyers at 150 million credits each. That would increase their existing fleet of Imperial Star Destroyers by more than 25%. With the enormous size of the Galactic Empire, every additional Star Destroyer helps increase their presence. Most people considered it way too powerful to take down, so they didn't even attempt to attack it. And if you want to go cheaper, you could purchase around 17,543 Victory-class Star Destroyers. The Victory-class was a little more than half the size of the Imperial-class Star Destroyer. And it had been in service since the Clone War. It was reliable and had terrific armor. Now, a few thousand Star Destroyers allows you to significantly increase your presence across the galaxy, but a ship of that size is overkill for most situations. The majority of planets in the galaxy were uninhabited, and only a few had populations the size of Earth. And it was even more rare to find a planet as populated as Coruscant. As a matter of fact, most inhabited planets had very few people on them. So, how many smaller patrol-sized ships could the Empire have purchased? Well, we couldn't find a price for the 325-meter-long Arcuetan-class light cruiser, so we have to go with a much smaller 63-meter Gazanti-class cruiser. They were very heavily armed, had decent firepower, and could carry up to 4 TIE fighters or 2 AT-AT walkers. At only 150,000 credits, the Empire could purchase 6,666,666 vessels. Now we're getting into some larger numbers, and the Empire could potentially deploy a few of these ships in each one of their systems. Enough to deter most bandits and pirates, and should an outpost or convoy run into some real trouble, they can at least hold the enemy at bay until reinforcements arrive. A trillion credits could also equip 500 million stormtroopers with missile launchers. I mean, sure, it might increase friendly fire incidents and civilian casualties and, I don't know, collateral damage, but It'll be really fun for the stormtroopers, and you guys know how important morale is for a fighting force, right? Plus, it serves as a great deterrent against any rebel, because everyone knows in a battle fought only with rocket launchers, no one wins. But if that's too awesome for you, a trillion credits could also equip the 125 million stormtroopers with E-Web heavy repeating blasters. Sure, they're too heavy to carry around, but just let the enemy come to you and fill them with blaster bolts. But okay, so let's say you think mobility is an important thing. You can also spend that trillion credits to buy 125 million 74Z speeder bikes. It might be confusing as hell for you to coordinate them, but your enemy will be extremely confused as well. Just imagine hundreds of stormtroopers flying around at 300 miles per hour. Yeah, a lot of people are gonna die. Okay, so those are extremely terrible military strategies that don't make any sense. So imagine this. What's one of the biggest problems with trying to suppress an insurgency group? Simple, they don't play by the rules. Look at Saw's partisans. They're essentially, well, you know, we can't say the T word because then advertisers won't want to advertise with us, even though we're using it in a perfectly acceptable way. So what's the best way to take a T word out? Well, by throwing their strategy right back at them. With a trillion credits, you could equip 20 billion stormtroopers with fragmentation grenades and use them to T-word the T-words. Okay, so let's say you don't want to T-word people because you're not an A-word and you just want to help some people out. Instead of building a freaking Death Star, well, you could have bought 126,582,278,481 buckets of Endorian fried chicken. Awesome.
Come on down to Dick's Diner and enjoy yourself a bucket of authentic homemade Endorian fried chicken. Just like Mama used to make. And better yet, we don't use any Ewok meat fillers like them other joints.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode, guys. The point is basically you should never put all your eggs into one basket. It's just a terrible strategic decision. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on all of our new content. And for all you Patreon supporters out there, thank you for your continued support. You want to know how many Patreon supporters we could buy with the Death Star? 0. That's because you guys are priceless. Thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.